Thank you very much, and I'm also here to learn. And it was good to get the remindings that what I have said, because I start with that. It's when the new countries, a lot of them, joined to the European Union after the Soviet Union was collapsed and the new European democracies start. And they were a little bit afraid about the assimilation all the time. And that's why I always said to them that, don't worry, you are the only Slovenians. You will be the only Estonians in the Union. Don't make copies, don't make fakes. You are what you are, and we want you as you are. And as you know, we succeed. We made a quite good success with the enlargement, but now we are facing the other challenges. We have to continue, because weddings are not enough. The marriage is important. So, being here in Berlin, I will say once again that it is fantastic to be here again. So many memories from this wonderful city, from European history, and also from these wonderful people here. So, culture of peace can be defined in many ways, but it normally relates to mediation, peace building, reconciliation, conflict prevention, and resolution. You might have many others in your mind. So moreover, it involves tolerance and mutual respect, what I have already heard by the other speakers. It can be nurtured by the peace education. Intercultural and interfaith dialogues are more and more important in today's world. I think it's because our time is a time of the super-individualism. And we also have to find means for harmony with other human beings. Even we are so smart, so clever, every one of us. So United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, is one of those entities that has worked towards the goal of no war and culture of peace for tens of years. The preamble to the Constitution of UNESCO very well put it. Its defenses of peace must be constructed in the minds of the people. This because wars also begin in the minds of the people. So individual is the starting point, as we have already discussed. Now I try to manage with this. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the same time, in the 1980s, when UNESCO was developing the vision of culture of peace, the term sustainable development was defined. This happened in the report of the Brundtland Commission, chaired by the former Prime Minister of Norway, Gro Harlem Brundtland. I think many of you, as I, we know her well. So the beginning of the new millennium highlighted United Nations long-lasting work for a more peaceful world. Heads of states and governments, I among them, came together to adopt the United Nations Millennium Declaration to reduce extreme poverty. The year 2000 was also the UN International Year for the Culture of Peace, followed by a decade for culture of peace and non-violence for the children and of the world. During those same years, the Millennium Development Goals, so-called MDGs, led to successful initiatives against poverty and hunger, and for better health and education. And it was very significant that MDGs were there to reduce the root causes of conflict and campaign for more sustainable societies in such a visible way. I personally can give a lot of memories how people were a little bit suspicious at the beginning. Many experienced leaders, a little bit like, yeah, MDGs, you are with your blue eyes. But then little by little they said, oh, you have made a success, because people have to have dreams, but also the bridge from the dreams to the reality. So, although it had been shown that inequality in human development and environmental degradation had their interconnections, environmental sustainability had its separate UN track for many years. Finally, in September 2015, all nations came together at the United Nations to agree on a new holistic framework. You know it. It's the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. And then we got the new Sustainable Development Goals, what you see there. The aim is a more prosperous, but also socially just and ecologically sustainable future for our planet. And it has brought a lot of hope. It is a framework that now guides the work of the global community, despite the tensions and some forces that draw us apart. It's good to confess all your previous sins, and my one of those is that I'm a former lawyer. A lawyer with the unions, and then I became a politician after that. And we lawyers, we have a certain way to think. And when we have the MDGs, I was very sorry that it was not legally binding international agreement, but just a politically binding. And the same with SDGs. But I have also learned that even the rule of law, it's very important in the globalist world. But your own will, the political will, your personal will, is even more important, stronger. And then I do hope so that SDGs will also work. Even then, core issues of that, the climate change, the Paris Agreement, it is also juridically binding, and I think President Trump have noticed that. Okay, but let's go further. So I think we can now see that how the education is part of this. So, dear audience, one of the most essential SDGs is the goal number 4, to ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning. And I put myself also put there the joy of learning, that you feel that it's an adventure, that you want to learn more. So globally, access to education and school enrollment rates have increased, especially for women and girls. It's one of the very good also successes by the MDGs. But now we have to continue. And it's a lot of work still remains to be done to achieve the SDGs goal number 4, because it is the quality of education, it's a lifelong learning, it's not only the basics. Inclusion and equality are critical steps in building more just societies. Education of mothers has an impact on whether their children, of course especially daughters, attend school. Educated women and girls have it easier to claim their rights, seek financing for their economic activities, and, all in all, to participate meaningfully in decision making. So, from Finland, I already underline very much the fact that we should not forget boys when we discuss education. And it's quite interesting. It's not only in Finland, but it's also in Myanmar, that the boys are those school droppers, those who are lagging behind. And this is not in my text, but I say to all the mothers and fathers here, we have to stop saying that boys are boys, they will learn later. Boys are boys, girls are girls, but they both have to study hard. Because in the future, equal society, nobody will get the bonus from their gender. And that's what I have teaching also as a mother and a grandmother of 5. And I think it was not a bad success. So I think it's also, in other way, very important. Critical thinking and the ability and the will to act just and fair are important learning results for all children and youth. So for the boys and girls, for the men and women. And UNESCO made its recommendations on peace education already in the 1970s. The aim is foster social and moral responsibility and to educate pupils and students for understanding beyond cultural and societal borderlines. So also learning and working together and appreciating different cultures and worldwide is fundamental. This is also part of a response to eliminate violent radicalization. One of the UNESCO's initiatives under global citizenship education is the action to prevent violent extremism through education. The idea is to strengthen at the national level, for example, teachers' capacity to understand and work for the prevention. Because all this, what we are now, I also asking here, is not easy. Everybody who has been working as a teacher in the suburb area, big cities where you have a different kind of cultural entities, like it was mentioned already from UK. So it's not so that everybody comes to the places, oh, so nice, we do that. But they have a lot of these, how could I say, hidden or open excuses why not to do in such a way. And we can speak about that more when we are with my former Slovenian colleague together. So one of the issues about this equality is also the gender. So, ladies and gentlemen, gender is not considered anymore as a soft politics or marginal issue, what we do when we have nothing else to do. But it is a key question of the global importance. We have promised to leave no one behind with SDGs, so let's not do it. If we want to build a better future for all, we need to make sure that women and girls enjoy the same rights and opportunities as men and boys. So it's not only that we are fair and equal, but we don't achieve the goal without this 50% of the world's population, women and girls. So they are the key, also for men and boys. So SDGs goal number 5, which is about this gender equality, it creates good basis for moving from the discussion of why gender equality matters to the discussion how we make equality a reality. So let's stop saying why, let's start speaking how. I have 5 grandchildren. My 3-year-old granddaughter, the smallest one of them, Jasmine, from UK. So when she's looking at me, the most common response by her is always, she calls me mummy, which is a grandmother in Finnish, and then she says, why? Why? I'm very interested to know that she will take the next step and say, how? But that's it. So one aspect is that the men and boys need to get involved in promoting gender equality. And this is sometimes even more difficult for them than for the girls, because they have this more benefited position. So, but it's also narrow in many ways. So it is important to allow boys and men to have new types of the role models and chances in life to pursue careers, lifestyles, and family roles, which lead to the greater sharing and equality in life. And this contributes to changing attitudes and social norms. So let's also, for the boys, to give possibilities for different kind of the roles. Let's encourage them to tell that grandfather is fine and your daddy is okay, but you can be even more. Okay. So I think that one of the eyes-opening situation campaigns for me in our dear Europe has been now this Me Too campaign. Because it has shaken the imagine of the countries as being relatively gender equal and no sexual harassment and so on. And suddenly it has come under the surface. So that it shows that in every one of the societies here in Europe, we have had a double standards of our societies. It's not comfortable, it's not nice when it happens. It can be all kind of overlapping and so. But it is healthy to open our own eyes too, to see that what has happened and how we can handle it. Every day something new. But then this could be also the item for one seminar, but let's go further. So the women and mediation. The United Nations has worked for a transformation towards a culture of peace, which would integrate the gender perspective in a more comprehensive way. The work continues now also with the UN Secretary General's high-level advisory board on mediation. I became also nominated to that by Guterres. So as a member of this advisory board, it was very good for me to hear that also other members emphasized the importance of gender equality during our first meeting now in November. If you will ask that how we will work and how we will do, I will say that we have just started our work, and I'm rather careful with my statements concerning, but I think it's very, very interesting new idea to start. So while I'm there, I think that I have also my experiences to give. I have worked very much in SDGs, the sustainable development. I have been also with a different kind of disaster movement, trying to diminish the difficulties after disasters, and such kind of the systems like disorganization, disaster reduction. But I think so that one thing what you don't normally know is that women and girls suffer disproportionately during and after the conflict. It's counted that during the conflict, whether it's a natural disaster or the armed conflict, they count that the women and children, they suffer, they risk to die is 14 times bigger than men. 14 times more. And this is not because of their gender as such, but because of the social, political, cultural, and economical traditional roles in which they have been seen. So might be such kind of traditions which stop them trying to escape in the same way, and many other issues. This is the whole story. Regardless of these challenges, the women are experts on how to survive during conflict, also during the armed conflict, and how to rebuild afterwards. They are the experts of the civil society very much. So although there would be recognition for the policy that women and men are equal partners in these processes, and that inclusiveness sustains peace, so the peace building remains largely dominated still by men. So women are also underrepresented in the most areas of the UN peace operations, also in the peace negotiations, and in national governance, particularly at senior levels. Therefore, the full implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security, and those resolutions after that, it is very vital really to focus on how we do it. Again, not why, but how. So, okay, I succeeded. So now we come back to Europe also. Today I have focused on actions taken at the global level for sustainable development and cultural peace, but important work is done at every level, local, national, regional, with every one of us, and this is why also your work as in this academy is very warmly welcome. So different entities and individuals are here already present to do their part, and work needs to continue. Also, within the European Union, where you have heard already excellent contributions, so we are looking for understanding cultural diversity and developing cross-sectoral synergies when formulating policies. So in the matter of fact, the cultural diversity is at the core of the European society, also in our history. So protecting and promoting the diversity of the cultural expressions is essential for cultural contribution to democracy, empowerment, and well-being of societies and people. So the only thing where I'm very cautious is always that culture cannot be an excuse for the discrimination. It's very often when we visit somewhere, and then we ask them, why you think that those or those people, not only gender but also the culture, why do you think that they are not quite all right? we have such kind of tradition. It's a culture, you see, in the 1420 they made this and that. It's not an excuse. What it is, I think that culture cannot be an excuse for the discrimination, but a fact which is taken into the consideration. Because, of course, we have our individual memories, we have our collective memories, we have the understanding how they are, but they cannot be excused to say that you are not with us. So, dear friends, let me finish by saying that we can solve problems with human knowledge and human will. In Finland, we have celebrated the centenary of our independence with a team together. This is a very important word. We are facing many challenges, among them the climate change, but that's exactly why we can't afford dividing this word to us and them. When we see a misunderstanding, a potential conflict, let us have a dialogue and try to solve it in the spirit of understanding. That's to cultivate peace. Like one of my African colleagues said to me that, yes, it is very difficult to work with the problems, but I can guarantee that it's not easier when they have changed into conflicts. That's good for time. And then you said that everybody has to be from somewhere. That's a good quote by the protocol. I say that I already mentioned that just in this year, the Finland has celebrated the fact that we have been 100 years independent. And those who are coming outside of Europe, I say that sometimes my friends have said that Finland has a very interesting way than African history. And when I heard it first time by my Canadian friends, I said, why you think so? So yeah, you have. And in a matter of fact, we Finns, we have been much longer time, of course, existing. I have our national dress, which is already, the model is more than 1,000 years old. But the fact is that when we see the European history, the first over 600 years we were the part of Sweden, our western neighbor. Then the king of Sweden started the war against the Russians and lost it. And so since the 1809, we became a part of Russia. The Sweden has to give us the eastern part to the Russia, and we became as an autonomous Grand Duchy of Russia. Then we were about 100 years under the Russian Tsar, and then we have a good eyes for the historical timing, and then we declared ourselves 100 years ago to become an independent. So the person called Lenin had what to do in St. Petersburg, and they said, okay, let's go on. And so we became independent, but then during the independence, in first 35 years, we had one civil war and 3 other wars. And then after the Second World War, we started to build our society. Now we are of course, perhaps not the richest, but the very, very equal sister of 5 Nordic welfare states. So we have made it. But then concerning this cultural dialogue, so we have historical minorities. We have a Swedish-speaking minority because of this historical background. Still 5% of the Finns speak Swedish as their mother tongue. They have all their cultural rights since the kindergarten or since the maternity clinics to the university. Then we have 2 other minorities. We have the Romas, Gypsies, as we said earlier, and then we have also the Sami people in the north where the Santa Claus comes. So that's the only European indigenous group. Then we have, of course, also people who cannot speak or hear. So all these languages are protected by our constitution. But then we have also a lot of new minorities, and we try to learn to live also with them. But I will quote the Finnish writer from the 19th century when he said that we are not Swedes, we will never become Russians, let's be Finns. Okay.